Hello everyone, my name is Victoria, and in the previous video I talked about vaccine-induced spinal cord damage, and this will be continuing of that. The examination showed that the therapy helped and the affected area in the spinal cord decreased by 40%, which confirmed that the inflammation was fresh and caused by vaccine. There was slight hope that it would decrease a little more as the therapy continues to work for some time. Of course, the result would be very good if I had started treatment as soon as possible, but perhaps this information will be useful to someone else and allow them to act more quickly if, God forbid, they find themselves in a similar situation as me. The next 6 months. After the course of therapy, it was not easy at all. It was difficult for me because the right side of my body didn't want to move at all. It was weaker and I had terrible stomach cramps about 30 times a day. Even now I can't explain what it really was. Apparently, the side of my body was resisting because there was damage to the part of the brain that controls that side. And my first few months of walking were very comic. Perhaps that's how it looked from the outside. Because when I started walking, I began to have cramps many times during my walk, and it was as if my body was resisting to recovery. Feedback. This can be useful for everyone who is going through illness that affect the brain and paralyze a part of the body. Share and tell others. Yes, I knew that my brain was damaged in specific areas, which is why I had limited movement on my right side. But our body has one super good feedback loop that always helps. Maybe not 100%, but there will be improvement. I had read about it and I had nothing to lose by trying it. So, if your arm, leg or fingers don't work because your brain is no longer sending the right signals, try doing the opposite. We make the brain work through the part that is don't want to move, or we make work it reverse. This silently improving the nerves and the function of that part of the brain which is not working. To put it very simply so that you understand completely, initially, our brain sends a command to the leg to move, and then a message comes from the legs to the brain that it has moved. So that's how our body works. But here we make the leg work in our case so that the signal goes to the brain that this has happened even when there is damage, and it gradually function begins to work. But it's a lot of work, and also it has to be done regularly. I also bought a very ordinary exercise machine and forced myself to walk on it because it was winter just like now, and it was very important to start moving. And to be honest, I was a little embarrassed by others at the time because I walked like a cripple for the first few months, so I mixed the treadmill with walks. Pain. The pain persisted for another 6 months. It was moderately severe, and I continued to take medication for another 6 months. This is normal. When the brain is affected, it takes at least 6 months to a year for it to calm down and stop sending pain signals. I was lucky and it took half a year. Later, the pain became minimal and I stopped taking medication because, to be honest, it slows down your reaction and you don't want to be drowsy all the time. What was left after all this? After all this, my right side was weaker and I could no longer wear anything tight around my waist, because on the side where I felt pain, it remained only in the form of tingling. Medically, this is called a neuropathy. As a result, I threw out half of the contents of my closet and realized that I would continue to live with a different style of dress. Continuing work and studies. After 6 months, I went back to my work and felt like a completely normal person. But after a few days, I realized that I couldn't handle the workload. Why? The most unpleasant moment was my back. For 6 months, I lay in bed in shock because it was easier. Of course, I didn't think about physical therapy because I was young, but in vain, because during these months, my back became a bit of a question mark, literally. As for my legs, a full day of work on my feet was no longer a burden for me. As a result, I began a long journey of physical therapy, which I am still continuing today. My advice to you, if you have physically or mentally difficult illness, is to think about your body. From my experience, I knew that when you are in a lot of pain, other things are not so important, but if I had through about physical therapy or exercise at the time, maybe it would be easier now, but I don't know if it would have been too much at that moment. Take care of yourself and your loved one. In the next video, you will find out what I am faced more than 2 years ago and I'm still struggling with today. See you next time. Bye bye.